where we're going to be at this morning. And we're getting a little bit of a late start here, so we're just going to kind of hit the high points probably in this lesson. We'll just kind of see where it takes us and where we go here. But what's your favorite thing about Christmas?
Family.
Family? Okay. What else? Favorite thing about Christmas?
Giving.
Giving. Okay.
Children
What else?
being excited. Children, the excitement of children.
The excitement of children. Yeah. All of those kind of things. I mean, this could be a long list, right? Of things. Although I'm beginning to think I might have a bunch of Scrooges in the room by the lack of response.
Well, we were trying to think, did we want to say what came to our mind, or were we looking for the church answer?
I want your mind, not the church answer. Actually, y'all were pretty excited whenever Kenny was passing out jelly. So.
Nothing. I didn't make it.
So, any of you that just came in the last few minutes, is there still jelly?
Yes.
Chad and Shelly brought, is it jelly?
Jelly, blackberry.
Blackberry jelly over here. So come get you a jar of blackberry jelly before you go today, okay? How has Christmas changed for you over the years? How is it different for you now than maybe, I gotta be careful because we're not all old. But how has it changed for you over the years?
You know, the excitement as a kid of receiving the gifts and stuff, now it's the excitement of watching kids open them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love watching them open the gifts.
Yeah, it's really, I saw a deal this week of a dad that said, yeah, I just want, my favorite thing is the excitement and the surprise of seeing what my kids get for Christmas. Some of you didn't even catch
get that.
Some of you didn't even catch that. You didn't even know. You just went right on by you. But it's really fun seeing what your kids get for Christmas. Oh, wow, that's awesome.
The joke in our house was always, I was the only one surprised on Christmas morning. She knew what they bought. I had no idea.
Yeah.
What he got me for Christmas this year. So.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing, though, how this holiday season affects people? I mean, even like the culture in general, you know, even the people just, don't you get that sense that, I mean, even at your workplace, I don't know if your workplace is like my workplace, but even around my workplace, there's been a different attitude, you know? What's that, Tish?
A little chaotic.
Oh, a little chaotic in elementary school, yeah. But now you get that nice long break, right?
So, where I work, my team has to take what they call a concern that comes in from the hospital in this 2 or 3 week stretch. Every year, nice lay down, people are not nice. When you get back from Christmas, they're going to call and yell. It's like awkward.
Yeah, but there is kind of this idea of like this peace, love, joy, you know what I mean, thing that kind of permeates the culture, right? Because finally, you know, thanks to Amazon and everything, we're finally past all that fighting at Christmas, you know, over toys. You know what I mean? Because there's not like that mad dash to get that hot thing anymore, you know what I mean? Like there kind of used to be, you know, when people were, you know, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, but there is kind of that feeling around, and it does kind of permeate the whole culture, and I kind of like that because, like you say, Trey, it seems like people are just a little bit nicer. I mean, even at my work, in the midst of, you know, the end of the year is horrible, right? But thank goodness Christmas falls at the end of the year too, because people are a little bit, you know, kinder, a little more patient, and all those kind of things, and all that. But I think many people in our culture, you know, they attach those, and one of the things that you could kind of put in all of the different things that we talked about that we love about Christmas, I think a lot of it can just be summed up in love. You know, whether that's love for family or the love of being able to give, or, you know what I mean, the excitement, you know what I mean, that we see in children. It's all generated from a place of love, right? And And I think a lot of people attach, love toward Christmas, but for a lot of people though, it's not real love. It's an idea of love. It's a sentimental form of love that is grounded mainly just in family, or just in their tradition, or just in the excitement of gifts, or any of the other trappings of Christmas. But what we're going to look at this morning is the love of Christ and the real love that's found in Christmas. And it's a love that it far exceeds the sentimental kind of love of Christmas, because it's a love that we don't deserve and we can't earn. It's a divine love. It's given purely out of grace. And that's kind of what we're going to see, I hope, here in the next couple of minutes this morning. And so this morning, as we look at the gospel, the first part of the gospel of John, and we'll get to the passage here in just a second, but guys, just in general, what makes the Gospel of John different than the other synoptic gospels? What's the major things that just make it different? Just general things. There's a lot you could say. So I'm not looking for one answer here. How's it different?
Talks about the logos.
Okay. So it begins with logos. It begins with the word, right? Even in the beginning of the gospel, John doesn't start where everybody else starts, right? All the other gospels, Matthew and Mark especially, and Luke to some degree, start with the birth of Christ. They start with Christmas, right? But John doesn't do that. John reaches back in eternity, right? And he starts with logos. He starts with the word. The word, in the beginning was the word. And so he reaches back and he really grabs onto this idea of Jesus was God. Jesus was divine. Jesus was in eternity past. He was there at creation. He spoke it all into being, right? And so that's different. What else is different about it, just in general terms? Not really about this lesson, but just in overall different.
The other gospels mainly tell the story of Jesus while coming in contact with people, whereas John he has a point in his gospel, first and foremost, so that causes him to leave out stories that other gospels tell us, because he's trying to show us specific signs that point to specific aspects of who Jesus is, specific I am statements.
Yes.
Has a purpose statement in his gospel that others don't.
Right. And what's the purpose statement?
Trying to find.
It's the chapter 20, verse 31, right?
Yeah.
What's it say, Michaela?
These are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life.
Exactly. So his whole point, he doesn't really follow the story in like a chronological sequence. He's not interested in that. He's not even interested really in the historical facts of like laying it out in time. But he is all about building a theological statement about Jesus and building toward that. All of these things have been written so that you might believe and that you might have life in his name. Okay? And so he's that's kind of his whole theme. And then the other kind of little theme that's in there also, and you find this not only in his gospel, but you find it in his letters also, is there's also a thread running through the gospel of John of love. That God love for that God is love, and that through that love we have the ability to love God and love others. And so that little theme is also laid in there as well. And so we're going to take a look at the beginning parts of this this morning and tie it into our Christmas theme here. So somebody go ahead then and read for us John chapter 1, verses 14 and 15.
The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory of the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him and exclaimed, "This was the one of whom I said, The one coming after me ranks ahead of me because he existed before me.
Okay, so in the previous verses, in the first 12 verses that weren't here, but verses 1 through 12, John is focusing on, in those verses, the fact that the Word was fully divine. Okay, the Word was God. Okay, and he was with God. He is fully divine. And now in verses 14 and 15, he shifts his focus on the Word being fully man. Okay, fully human. So he's fully God, reaching back into eternity past, and now he is fully man. And that's kind of a mystery to us, right? I mean, we understand it, we accept it, we believe it, but that statement, the Word became flesh, what does that mean to you this Christmas season? Isn't it interesting just to think about? The God that always was became something that he had never been. The eternal one, the creator of all things, manifested himself as a specific person at a specific point in time. Jesus of Nazareth. Right?
I like to tell people that he left his throne willingly to come to earth, that he cloaked himself in flesh.
Yeah. Isn't that just an amazing thing, though? It is just an amazing thing to think about. And while he didn't give up being the divine Word, he was still God, but he was God incarnate. He was Emmanuel.
God with skin on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great way of putting it. God with skin on. You know? And in all the ways he could have come, it could have been different. But coming as a baby? Is there anything more helpless and fragile than that? Not much, right? But
well, wasn't that the only way he could really had to experience all of it? Humanity.
yes, he did, and I know that he did. But doesn't that even that mean something to you? Doesn't that kind of strike a chord in your heart that he wanted to know and experience everything? I could have left out some stuff, right? I mean, even looking back on my life up to this point, there's stuff I'd been more than happy to left out, right? I wish I could go back and hit a delete button on some of the things, you know what I mean? Used to be white out, but now we can just delete it. Show my age again. But, but God in flesh, he came to experience everything. Everything that you've experienced, he experienced, and more. And he came to work in and through human history with the goal of redemption, the redemption of man, and the creation of a people of God. And so the Word became flesh, and he dwelt among us. Probably a better way to look at that was he tabernacled among us. Reaching back to that Old Testament idea of tabernacle, a temporary dwelling place of God, in amongst the people. That's what he dwelt among us really means there. And then you go on from there, and it says, and we observe his glory. The glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. That word observe there, it's not just a quick glance. It's a long studied look. It's like looking into a thing for a really, really long time. And it's kind of interesting here. I kind of love the little play on words here because it's talking about the word. And what do we usually think about when we think about word? Hearing, right? When you think about word, you think about hearing. But John says we've seen it. The word dwelt among us and we saw it. We've seen its glory, or we've seen the word's glory. And Jesus didn't just come and speak; he came and he acted. And that glory refers to the glory of God as being seen in God with skin on. Right? We got to see God in a way that we had never seen him before, that no one had ever seen him before, and that so we have observed or we've seen his glory. And what is glory, guys? What is glory? What do you think about when you hear the word glory?
I think about God when I hear the word glory.
Right?
Just those two go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand because glory is the manifestation of the presence of God. Right? So even as the angels broke forth in the sky last week in the story, right? And they were singing glory to God, right? In the highest. They were talking about his presence and they were celebrating his coming to earth, right? And so you're right. You think about God and you think about the presence of God. Anywhere God is, there's glory. Okay? It is the manifest presence of God. It's the power of God. And all of it affirms his worthiness to be worshipped. Okay? And so in Jesus, we see this powerful manifestation in a way vastly superior and completely unlike anything we have ever seen before prior to the coming of Christ, prior to this incarnation. And so the one who is to come, called Emmanuel, God with us, that's what John's describing here, Isaiah 7:14. And the way God himself came to be with us was through Jesus, and the Word became flesh. So, a lot of things there, right? But here's really what I want to get at. If glory is a manifestation of the presence of God with power, making him worthy of worship, he is, right? In what ways have you seen a fresh revelation of this amazing glory in your life? Okay? And from that, it motivates you to do what? Okay? Love even more, worship even more. Okay? All right? What else, guys? What are some ways that you have seen a fresh revelation of his amazing glory in your life? Or among your family? Or in your church this Christmas season? Is God at work? Is God showing himself? Is God present? Because if God's present, then there is a reason to worship. There is a reason to celebrate. There is a reason to be amazed at the glory of God. Is it just another day? Is it just another moment? Go ahead, Brother Tom.
I was reading, actually this morning, when we go to heaven, as Christians, when we go to heaven, we're not going to worry about all the things that went wrong in our life. What we're going to be wishing when we're in heaven is that we can worship more, praise God more, prayed more, sacrifice more through our life.
Yeah, I think that's true for a moment. Because then there's going to be no more tears. Right? I think that'll happen for a moment, but we're quickly going to move past that.
I think the point of what they were saying
Yes.
is, though, we need to think about that now.
Now, yes, absolutely. We need to deal with the reality of that right now today. Right? Marvin, what did you have? You had something you wanted to share.
My situation, the glory of being scared of the cancer they seen in my PET scan, and God took it totally away.
Right?
No spots, nothing. It's gone. And that's glory to me.
Absolutely. And so that's just what I want you to, I just want you to get grab a hold of, okay? That you might be going through, maybe this isn't the happiest time of the year for you, right? Or maybe there's difficulties, maybe there's struggles, maybe there's trials, maybe there's something going on. Maybe, what we've heard about things, right? But God is present in you. God is present, and God is at work, and that's amazing.
Steve, Deborah Payne wants to respond to your question,
Okay.
and she answers, God's grace for my husband, who we are sharing this class with, our family.
Yeah, it's all those types of things. And so I just want to encourage you to think about it, to even just get a grasp that if you've got Jesus, you've got something amazing, and there is a glory present in your life, even right now, that is worthy of worship, worthy of praise, all those types of things. And that's even what we see going on later than that. So real quick, I don't want to skip over verse 15. John testified concerning him and explained, this was the one of whom I said, the one coming after me ranks ahead of me because he existed before me. And so what is John saying there? He's saying, I have seen the amazing glory of God. And it's been revealed in Jesus. John saw the glory of God. Do you see it? Do you see it? It's there, and it's in your life. So, now let's look at the amazing grace of God. Somebody read verses 16, 17, and 18.
Indeed, we had all received grace upon grace from his fullness. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only one and the only Son, who is himself God, is at the Father's side. He has revealed.
All right. So, we got to reach back real quick. We got to reach back to verse 12. Verse 12 says, those that receive him to all those who receive him by believing. Okay? If you have received him by believing, then in verse 16, you get something in return. And what do you get? Grace. Amazing grace, right? And it's not just a little grace, is it, John? It's grace upon grace upon grace upon grace, right? It's abundant grace, right? We have an abundance of his grace. He doesn't give us just enough grace to get by, but his grace flows over us and over us and over us. And he gives enough, he gives us enough, and then he gives us some more than that, even to sustain us in this life and to carry us all the way into eternity. So what's your testimony about experiencing the amazing grace of Christ and salvation? Every one of you has a testimony, right? You have a testimony about receiving this grace upon grace through Jesus. And not only that, but then we also get this grace that continues to sustain us, right? And encourage us. I mean, you just heard Marvin talking about it, right? That's not grace that you had enough. That's just God showing off. Right? I mean, I don't mean that, I'm not, you know what I'm saying, right, Marvin? I'm not belittling the thing at all. But you've already got the grace that's going to carry you all the way to heaven. And then he just gives you more.
He's showing other people
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's the point, is we get to be this testimony, though. It's our job to testify to this grace upon grace upon grace. It's not just for your benefit. It's for you to be a people of grace. It's to be a people that testify to the amazing grace of God and to share it with other people. See, and that's just a cool thing that God does, right? To sustain us and to encourage us and to just give us a reason to worship. Just give us a reason to brag about Him, right? Just, when was the last time you bragged about God? You know, we brag about our grandkids, we brag about our kids, we brag about all kinds of things. We brag about our Chiefs being 14-1, you know. We brag about all kinds of things, right? Mizzou walked snot out of Katie. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I brag about that. No offense to my Katie friends. But when was the last time you bragged about God? Man, let me tell you what God's doing. When's the last time you said something like that? Let me tell you about my Jesus.
That's what kids ask me every year what I want for Christmas. I got everything I want. I got Jesus and I got my kids.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely, right? All this stuff, it's so great and it's so amazing. And we received it all from His fullness. He goes on there, he says, for the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus. John doesn't have a negative opinion about the law, because even the law was a gift of God. But we quickly realized that nobody could ever live up to it, right? Nobody could keep it. So God did something better. God did something unusual to make Himself and to make His desires known and possible. In Jesus, God acted in grace and truth to provide deliverance from sin, with Jesus being that deliverer, right? In Jesus, there is release, there is forgiveness, there is light, there is life, there is fellowship in the family of God. And there's no other way to it except through Him. That's what this next verses say. You say, well, that's not what it says. That's exactly what it says. It says, no one's ever seen God. The one and only Son, who Himself is God and is at the Father's side, is revealed Him. So, we know what that just says? That there is no other way to God except through Jesus. There's no other way to see Him. There's no other way to know Him. It's all through Jesus, and it's only through Jesus. He Himself is God, and He is at the Father's side. He has the unique relationship to God that more than qualifies Him to make the Father known, right? He has full, intimate knowledge of the Father that only comes from being so closely bound to Him. Therefore, there is no other way to know God except through His Son. And He is completely necessary if we are to know the fullness and the richness and the abundance of God's grace and truth. Okay? So, Michaela, this goes back to what you talked about earlier. This is the whole purpose of the document in front of us. This is the whole purpose. It records the struggle between those who will acknowledge Jesus as the revealer of God and those who won't. And that struggle is going to go on until the end of time. Fortunately, Michaela has decided where she stands on that struggle. Right? But her sister is not. And that's why we need to pray for your sister. Right? Because she's not acknowledged that Jesus is God. That Jesus has revealed God to us so that He can rescue us. So that He can deliver us from sin. And so everything that everything that else that's going on is just natural to the natural state of man apart from God and apart from Jesus, right? And so you just have to keep praying and praying that somehow, some way, that God is going to break through and she is going to see and experience the grace of God. And that grace only comes in Jesus. That's what John's gospel, that's what this is all about. He's saying, he's making a case. He's saying Jesus is the only way. And there's no other way. And so we look for purpose and we look for meaning and we're not finding it anywhere else. And so we think, well, maybe this will be the answer. And the answer is in Jesus. And that's the only place that it is. You have to reach out and be embraced by that amazing grace of God that's been manifested in Jesus. And I'm sorry, hon, I don't mean to make it, you know what I mean, more personal, but I'm doing that more for the benefit of all the rest of us so that we'll just pray and pray and pray and pray. Because she needs to be released. She needs to be freed. She needs to know that love and that grace that comes only through Jesus. And so all of us, we have this opportunity and we have this purpose that there is a challenge in this because we have all received grace upon grace upon grace. What are you doing with it? Because it's not just for you. It is. But he also gives an abundance so that you can brag about him, so that you can testify about him, so that you can witness to those that need to know. So that you can encourage others as well to do that. And anyway, there's a lot there. Any other thoughts, any other questions about that part right there? All right, let's jump ahead to John chapter 3. We're going to not spend too much time here because this could be like a whole, well, you know, you've heard it. This could be a whole sermon in and of itself, and I'm not going to give you a sermon about it. So let's just read John chapter 3, verses 14 through 18.
Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Anyone who believes in him is not condemned, but anyone who does not believe is already condemned, because he has not believed in the name of the one and only Son of God.
All right, so here we get it, right? Here we get the reason, we get the purpose of the mission, and we get what it's motivated by. Why did Jesus come? Simple. Why did he come?
Save the world.
To save us, right? He came to save us. What was he motivated by? Love, right? He did it out of love. And in all of that, you know, tying it back to the what he tied it back to there, the snake that was looked up in the wilderness and all that. He didn't come to be the great condemner, right? But to be the gracious Christ who comes to them. So where does condemnation come from then? Okay? If it's not placed upon us by an act of God, does God not judge sin? He does. He does. But that's not his primary purpose, is it? What's his primary purpose?
Have a relationship with us.
To save. His primary purpose is to rescue, to save, to have that relationship with us, right? And so his judgment, really, in a sense, is simply acknowledging what an individual and the world at large has already chosen. Therefore, condemnation is self-inflicted. The world and every person who lives in the world condemns themselves by choosing to reject Jesus rather than. Right? Because he who has not believed in the name of the one and only Son of God has condemned himself already. Could John have stated it any plainer or more clear than that? God reached out in love by sending us his Son. Will we reach up in love to receive him, the greatest gift of all? That's what it's about. Hope, peace, joy, love. They've kind of been the theme words of our study over the last few weeks. And as we talked about earlier in the beginning of the class, they're popular words of the season, even among the culture at large. Just turn on your radio. I know now here I go showing my age again. Some of you haven't turned on a radio in years. You turn on you open up your app and you listen to the stuff you've already got. But old people like me, we still listen to the radio. And what do you hear? You hear songs, even in contemporary culture, even contemporary songs about peace, love, joy, all that stuff. It's in there. It's all in there. Even the Santa Claus ones, even the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, even all those little holiday specials. What do they got? What are they celebrating? Hope, peace, joy, love. You know why? Because everyone won't really, at the end of the day, everybody wants to live with hope. Everybody wants to dwell in peace. Everybody wants to celebrate with joy. And everybody wants to share love. Even in the culture at large. That's what they want. But unfortunately, the popular culture is looking in the wrong places to find them. Because much of the message of the world centers on what we do. Thinking that all those desirable attributes that we just talked about, that we can make it happen. We can produce them. We can produce love. We can produce hope. We can produce joy. If we'll just be nice. It's not right. There's a flaw in that thinking. And here's the flaw in that thinking. You can't implement what you don't have. And you won't have those things unless you go to the right source to get them. And what our studies over the last recent weeks have affirmed is that hope, joy, peace, and love are of God. And they are divine attributes of God. And he has graciously shared them in the sending of his Son. The baby of Christmas. The Christ of the cross. And the one who's coming again as Lord of all eternity. Right? Motivated by his great love, God the Father gave us hope, peace, and joy, and a capacity to love in a world that is dwelling in darkness and in need of a great light. Don't miss them this Christmas. don't miss Jesus. Right? Don't miss the glory. Don't miss the grace. Don't miss the love. Because that's really what it's all about. So here's the thing. The world wants all those things. And you've got them. Celebrate the fact that you've got them. And then, like the shepherds, get on the mission of going and telling everything. Go and tell. Brag about Jesus. Brag about God. Share your testimony. Be a witness. Be a light in a dark place. And pray, pray, pray. All right? All right, guys. Love y'all. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your time together. And, yeah, just have a great, great Christmas. Love y'all.